one. And well, let's get started. We're gonna start with our general warm-up. First things first, we're gonna start with some arm circles. So we're gonna do 20 little ones going forward, 20 little ones going back. Yeah, go ahead. And then after you do little ones, do the same thing, but bigger range of motion. So because she's doing this, it's gonna loosen up her joints, it's gonna improve her blood flow, it's gonna help them to be less likely to get an injury during her workout today. This is known to improve performance and muscle soreness, improve flexibility, and improve cardiovascular fitness. Because she was warming up her shoulders and stuff, we are doing shoulder abduction and adduction movements. Today, upper and lower body, we're going to do a little mix of both because they're not so concentrated on a specific muscle group. So next up, we do have leg swings. It'll probably be easier for her to grab onto the wall and get into those. So she's just going to go forward and back. How many times? 20. So while she's doing that, pause it. So while she's doing that is lubricating her hip joints and stuff. It's also allowing her to embrace any core things going on.
Like what core things?
So anything like abdominal that we're gonna have to engage our core in both lower body workouts today. She's keeping her back straight, up and down. I can tell right away like her flexibility in our hamstrings are more than her quads.
Let's get this angle. Oh, gotcha.
Right, so she's gonna try to push her shoulder back, contract your back muscles back here, and try to keep your hips pushed down, your lower back pushed down while you're swinging. Then help you keep your posture and warm up also with your lower back as well. We're gonna do about 20 jumping jacks. This jumping jacks will do basically the whole body. It's just basically to get the heart going, to allow her to have like a faster heart rate when starting. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So because she was moving her arms laterally and abducting them, that will help her prepare for also our races later on in the video, and for that part of the jumping jack, we'll also be doing side lateral walks. So that's a good help to prepare for that. Next, we do have one more thing, and it's 5 minutes cycling. Also, come on guys. This is also just to get our heart rate up. Have a seated cycle and I guess. We should have this broke. Grab this broke on this one. It will be. This is basically for an athlete or anyone trying to get into shape. It's really important to get your heart rate up so it doesn't be surprised by anything. It'll prepare them for more game-like scenarios, or instead of like straight like bodybuilding strength training kind of stuff. It helps them achieve like a different athleticism during their workout. So basically blood vessels including tiny capillaries, will open up while she's doing this. That's how you increase blood supply flow in her muscles. So as the blood supply is flowing through her, that will allow her muscles to get more oxygen in the parts that are working and are being activated. So to also help with her workout and pushing more weight or like doing more reps. And also your muscles contract easier when they're oxygen rich. Joints are loosening up. Her hip joints, her knee joints, and her ankle plantar flexion and extension are also being warmed up. So we're doing more of a dynamic warm-up instead of a static warm-up. Static warm-up, it would have been like standing in place, touching your toes. And that's just kind of working on like the range of motion of your hinges for that, of your trunk. And that, I don't think that's really what we're trying to go for today. We kind of want to activate everything so we can get started.
Well, what do you know about what's going on in her body right now?
Her knees are currently going into flexion and extension, which we'll also be talking about later.
Is this only beneficial for her lower body, or is there any benefit to her upper body at the moment?
No, her upper body is basically at a resting state right now. This is just like her lower body and her heart rate going.
Cool. Alina, how do you feel?
I'm good. I will say I once had a personal trainer who started off with this, but I never knew why. So it's good to understand what's going on and the importance and the explanation of what's actually going on in my body and why this warm-up is beneficial.
Okay.
We got 2.5 minutes left. Feeling good.
Yes.
My mets are 1.8. At BPM of 122.
Oh, that's good. Let's get a shot of that. Let's see here.
So far, I've lost 8 calories.
Oh.
Shoot. Actually, Professor, I don't know if these numbers are accurate. I'll ask you in class for sure. But yeah, she basically hit half a mile in 4 minutes.
Is there a specific rate that she should be going at?
Not that I specific. Just enough to like get you. I feel like any rate would get your heart going on this thing. Unless you absolutely go terribly slow. I feel like she's going faster to see if it makes the time go faster.
Nah, I got 8 seconds left.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not how it works. So,
True.
right? True. She hit 5 minutes. Okay, so for the first modality, I'll be doing resistance training exercises using dumbbells. For that first exercise, we'll be doing an incline dumbbell bench press. So I'm just gonna, oh goodness, set this up to I'm not sure what degree that is, but we're setting it there. You need a good incline for that differentiality between a supine flat bench press with a dumbbell. So we have our nice client over here, my demo client. She's gonna sit down, lay back in the 5-point body contact position. I'm gonna grab 10-pound weights for her. Nothing too crazy. I don't want to break her. Oh, just kidding. We're gonna grab 5s. Let's see. Yeah, we have 5-pound weights. I'm gonna set them on her knees. She's gonna grab the middle parts of the dumbbells with a pronated grip. So basically, there you go, closed pronated grip. Actually,
So she's gonna bring them up to her shoulders and then push them up for the starting position. For the downward movement, she's gonna lower the dumbbells with a controlled elbow flexion. As she lowers, her muscle will go into concentric phase and her muscles will contract. She's going to keep her wrist stiff to prevent any sagittal flexion or extension in the wrist that could cause stress or like any activation of the muscles that we're not looking for. For the upward movement, she's going to exhale and gently press upwards to full elbow extension. So this is fully extended with the dumbbells positioned back where we started. They're aligned. Some people do it at like in a Y-shaped angle, but we're just doing straight across right now. To maintain like the points of contact with the bench and floor, avoid arching your back. So her back is flat to the bench. And her wrist position is going to remain that way throughout the entire movement. She's going to do about 10 reps of these. So she's going to come down in controlled flexion, and then she's going to go back up into a elbow extension. 8 times. Muscles being activated is the pectoralis major, anterior deltoids, and tricep brachii. Another key thing, keeping her elbows level when coming down, so she's not adding an extra extension of the shoulder muscles up here. We're just going to keep it at a level with shoulder level downward movement. External obliques, quadratus lumborum, and rotator cuff muscles. So that will be it for the warm-ups. While she's working on those, we're going to talk about the variation. So for the variation, the only thing we're going to do, she has the weights right here. We're going to internally rotate our wrists to a vertical grip. We're going to do about 8 of those. So she's going to kick the weights up, bring them up. Bring them up. So with these, we're going to actually keep them apart first for the first variation. This adds less stability and less control for her. So it might be a little wobbly just because it might be a little awkward position, but it is a variation. So she rotated her hands vertically, changes the alignment of the wrists and elbows and shoulders. The palms are facing each other, which alters the biomechanics of the movement and distribution of force through the upper body. For the elbow alignment, her vertically rotated hands, her elbows tend to track closer to the body during the pressing phase. And she's going to go ahead and just push back up. Her elbows are still doing flexion and extension, but through a different plane. As you can see, the sagittal plane, it was to the side, and now we're doing the frontal plane, I believe. Go, go, go. She's going to do about 8 of those. The muscle engagement, it's going to increase emphasis on the inner chest and sternal head of the pectoralis major. So by rotating her hands, as a result, she may experience a more deeper or more intense contraction in the inner chest region. Altered triceps engagement with the hands in a neutral grip, the dumbbells are brought together. The triceps brachii play a crucial role in stabilizing and controlling the movement. And as she presses the dumbbells upwards, the triceps engagement throughout the entire range of motion. So the triceps are going to be engaged throughout the entire range of motion for that one. This variations increase the demand on the triceps compared to the wider grip as they work to the first variation, as they work to overcome mechanical disadvantage of the closer hand position. So this is going to have to allow her to to engage more stability and control. Bringing, oh, yes, that is true. I started reading the next page. Okay, so for the next variation, we'll be doing we're gonna do a vertical, so internal rotation of the hands and pushing the weight together towards the midline. So for this, it is allowing the triceps to be more activated. So she's gonna come back down, elbow flexion, muscles contracting, and then she's gonna push back up, extension. She's breathing in on the downward phase and exhaling on the eccentric phase. She's gonna do about 6 of those. Basically, yeah, her triceps are gonna be more activated in this. Shoulder engagement, because she's looking more stability in her shoulder girdle during the incline of this variation. She's gonna have changes, particularly in the glenohumeral joint. This can affect the recruitment pattern of the deltoid muscles. So this allows her to also allow her to be in a more stable position, because the first one, since it was out here, the center of gravity wasn't really like on her side, so maybe she was a little wobbly. But with this, she has something pushing against the dumbbells against each other, and she is in her midline area, which allows her to have a lot more control. So that's the incline dumbbell bench press. So we are still in our resistance training exercises using dumbbells. For this next one, we'll be going into a goblet squat. So my client over here, she's going to go feet shoulder width apart, dumbbell at the chest, using the palms of her hands to grab onto that weight. She's going to go ahead and make sure her back is straight. So with a slight bend in her knee already, to just create a more athletic position. True. Okay, so she's gonna go ahead and do a sagittal knee flexion to about that height, and then she's gonna come up into an extension. Her trunk is also flexing and extending during this, maybe ever so slightly. She's gonna do about 8 of these. So in the sagittal plane, primary movement of the goblet squat occurs in this plane. This divides the body into left and right halves, involves forward and back movement. So the muscles really engaged here are the quadriceps. These muscles are in front of the thigh and heavily engaged during the squatting motion to extend the knee joint. Gluteus maximus, the largest muscle in the body, actually located at the buttocks, it's activated to extend the hips and bring the body back to the standing position. Hamstrings are situated at the back of the thigh. These muscles assist to help hip extension during the upward phase of the squat. And then you have your adductors and abductors, the inner and outer thigh muscles, to contribute to maintaining proper knee alignment throughout the movement. That's why she doesn't have wobbly knees trying to do these. Erector spine and core muscles, so muscles along the spine and in the core, help stabilize the trunk and maintain an upright posture. And so for the concentric phase, as she's lowering her body, she's bending her knees and hips, keeping the back straight, chest up, and engaging her core, pushing her belly back into her spine. Through the eccentric phase, she's pushing through her heels to extend her knees and hips. So for the variation, we're going to do about maybe 6 of these. All she's doing, instead of having her feet shoulder width apart, she's going to go ahead and move them laterally. Move her feet laterally, toes pointing just in a comfortable position for her. The range of motion still stays the same. That's something we're not changing. So as she does 6 of these, we're going to talk about the muscles engagement difference. So for the quadriceps, widening her stance is going to place more emphasis on the inner portions of the quadriceps, particularly the vastus medialis. This muscle helps stabilize the knee joints and aids in knee extensions. Your adductors will engage of the inner thigh to a greater extent. Gluteus maximus. It will increase the hip abduction movement arm, requiring glutes to work harder to extend the hips. And then also for the last variation, we are just adding height to the widened stance, I'd say. These are actually heavy to move. So she's gonna stand on them. I feel like I would imagine these to be a little bit bigger, but this is what we have. I could add another plate, but those are really heavy. So for these, she's also going to do 6 reps. So for the added height, her feet are elevated with feet blocks, which changes the alignment of the lower body and alters a little bit of the biomechanics of the squat. So the shift may load slightly forward compared to the traditional squat. This altered the foot position, also leading to changes in muscle activation and recruitment patterns. She's gonna go ahead and do a regular squat. She's able to go deeper in her range of motion and come back up. So she's hinging at the hip. And the movement pattern for the hinge of the hip actually stays the same regardless stance of the width. It's just the height that changes it. So since she is going a deeper range of motion, the hinge is extending a little more. So this also leads to a pronounced posterior pelvic tilt in the bottom of the squat, engaging the glutes, hamstrings to a greater extent. Knee alignment, so this will increase the dorsiflexion in the ankle joint. There might be slight changes in the ankle and knee, leading a more enhanced activation of quadriceps and glutes, because we are eccentrically stretching them a little more through this range of motion. So also the little micro tears, they might be happening more, and which could also cause more soreness the next day. So that is my goblet squat. Okay, so for our second modality, we'll be doing resistance training exercises using barbells. Okay. We'll be doing bent over rows. We have a Smith machine, but that's kind of not what we want to use for this one. So we are using the hang down piece of equipment. I feel like it could get the point across. So my client here, she's gonna grasp the bar with a supinated grip. Grip should be a little wider than shoulder width apart. She's gonna go ahead and put her feet in the position of shoulder width apart with her knees slightly flexed for that athletic position. She's gonna flex forward at the hips, so hip flexion. She's going to allow the bar to hang with the elbows fully in extension. she's gonna pull the bar towards her torso. She's not gonna jerk or go fast or anything like that. She's gonna go in a straight line into her torso. And as she lowers it, she's gonna bring the bar back to the starting position and maintaining a neutral spine position, pushing her pelvis back, or tugging her pelvis in and tucking her core back into the back of her spine. She's going to do about 8 of these. While she's doing that, the muscles that it activates is the latissimus dorsi, teres major, middle trapezius, rhomboids, and posterior deltoids. And we'll talk about those muscles as the variations changes. So for the next variation, she's actually going to pronate her hands. So instead of her hands closed like this, she's going to close her hands on top of them. We're not moving the hands. We're not moving the feet. We're not moving the width of the hands. We are changing the hands. We're changing the placement of the hands. So she's going to go ahead and go into hip flexion and full elbow extension, hanging the bar down, tucking her pelvis in, making sure her spine is in that neutral position, with a little bit of flexion in her knee also for that athletic position. So she's going to go ahead and do 6 reps. But while she's doing those reps, we're going to talk about how it increases the engagement of the latissimus dorsi. The lats are responsible for the shoulder extension, adduction, and scapular depression. The pronated grip, it optimizes the biomechanics for maximal lat activation, allowing them to work more effectively to pull the weight. It also activates the teres major muscle to a greater extent. This muscle works synergistically with the lats to adduct and internally rotate the shoulder joint during the rowing motion. There's reduced bicep activation. They're mechanically disadvantaged position compared to the supinated grip. This is with the pronated grip. It allows a greater isolation of the back muscles. On to the third variation. We're going to do a narrow stance. So her feet are going to change. Her feet are going to come together. I guess it doesn't have to be touching. Her feet are going to come closer together, but she's still going to go ahead and flex her knees a little bit to get in that athletic position. Flex her trunk so she can lean over. She's going to allow her arms, elbows to go in full extension and hang that bar down. So right here, it's a little harder, but she's going to tuck her pelvis in for that neutral spine position. Shoulders are going to be back and down. So as she's doing these, it's still the same range of motion. She's going to go ahead and pull it towards her torso. So this will increase the lower back activation. She's going to do about 6 of these. The erector spinae work to maintain spinal stability to prevent excessive flexion of the spine during the rowing motion. The stability demands on the lower back are higher, requiring the erector spinae to work harder to maintain proper spinal alignment. This will enhance core activation. If she had weight on it, she could probably feel it more, but right now we can't put weight on it. There will be increased upper back activation for this, and forearm and grip strength will also increase. So we're still on the same modality of doing resistance exercises using a barbell, and right now we're going to do the traditional back squat. So she's going to go ahead and put our so-called barbell onto the back of her shoulders. She grabbed the bar with a pronated closed grip. I had on here to step under the bar, but we don't have like a little setup. So she put our so-called bar onto the back of her shoulders. So she's gonna have her feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly flexed. She's gonna work on tucking in that core and pushing the core to the back of her spine and tucking in her pelvis. She's gonna try to keep her chest in an upright position, contracting her back and pushing it down. So as she moves down, she's going to maintain the position with the back neutrals and elbows high, chest up and out, allowing the hips to hinge into flexion and knees also to go into flexion. Her knees are going to be aligned to the floor, to her feet. She's going to continue flexing until her thighs are parallel to the floor. For the upward movement phase, she's going to keep maintaining the neutral spine, high elbows, chest out. She's not going to try to flex her torso forward or round the back. It could cause problems in the future. Extending the hips and knees to reach back up to that starting position. At the end of the set, she's going to step forward and rack up the barbell. But, again, not a real barbell. So she did a few of those. The muscle activation. It activates the gluteus maximus, semimembranous, semitendinosus. I'm gonna get it. Biceps femoris and vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, vastus medialis, and rectus femoris. We'll talk more about these throughout the different variations. So for the next variation, we are gonna go ahead and put the barbell back onto the back of her shoulders. As you see, the barbell is at the tops of her shoulders right here, but we are going to lower it a little bit to a lower barbell placement, and that's my variation. Same thing, she's going to remain a neutral spine, tucking in her pelvis, contracting her core. She's going to contract her back and push her shoulders down to maintain a good posture. She's going to go into knee flexion, hip and trunk flexion, trying to get her thighs, her quads to become parallel to the floor. So while she does around eight squats in that position, we're going to talk about the muscle engagement. So it'll increase the posterior chain activation, greater emphasis on the posterior chain muscles, including the gluteus maximus, hamstrings, and erector spinae. And then it'll reduce quadricep emphasis. Because it decreases the leverage advantage of the quadriceps, reducing their involvement in the squatting motion. With the bar positioned lower, there's less knee flexion required to achieve the depth of the squat, leading to reduced activation of the quadriceps. There's altered hip and knee mechanics. The hip joints, the hip may actually sit back further, promoting a more pronounced hip hinge motion during the descent phase of the squat. It also reduces stress on the knees for the knee joints. It'll increase the engagement of the quadriceps and other knee extensor muscles throughout the range of motion compared to a higher bar placement. Next, we'll be doing a deeper range of motion. So basically a deep squat. So she's going to go into that first variation position of a regular squat. She's going to place the bar back on top of her shoulder muscles. So for this one, she's just going to go down, knee flexion, trunk flexion, neutral spine into a deeper position, and she's going to come back up. So there is a new ankle mobility requirement. It'll demand a greater ankle mobility to maintain proper form throughout the movement. So some of these muscles, the gastrocnemius, soleus tibialis anterior, peroneus longus, peroneus brevis. These muscles are located at the ankle joint, working together to dorsiflex the foot and stabilize the ankle during the squat. So there's an increased quadriceps activation. She's going down and she's hinging at her hips a little more, creating like a negative, a more negative movement, which stretches the quadriceps a little more. There's a greater glute activation, also due to the eccentric phase because it's stretching the muscle more. Enhanced hamstring engagement, hip abductors and adductors, and increased core activation. This will help core strength and stability. She'll do about, how many did she do? She'll do about 4 more of these. So for the enhanced greater glute activation, the powerful hip extensor muscle is stretched more as you descend deeper, as I said before, leading to a stronger contraction during the ascent phase. Good job. For the third modality, we'll be doing kettlebell resistance training exercises. So the first one we're going to do is standing overhead kettlebell tricep extension. So standing overhead, she's going to lift the... Oh, yeah, we don't have kettlebells. So we're going to use a dumbbell holding the sides of it to simulate the hook on the kettlebell. She's as if she was holding the sides of those. So we're going to be doing that. She's going to bring it up over her head. Her elbows are going to be facing forward. For the main movement, it's going to be elbow flexion and extension. She's going to go into flexion. Her muscles are stretching in her triceps, and then she's going to go back up, which is contracting them. She's going to do about 8 of these. Joint movement, concentric phase involves extending the elbow joint, moving the forearm away from the upper arm, elbow flexion during the eccentric phase. Flexes to lower the kettlebell behind her head. Triceps brachii contract to extend the elbow joint. During the eccentric phase, the triceps eccentrically lengthen to control the descent of the kettlebell. For the joint movement, there's shoulder abduction and adduction. Stabilizing the muscles in the shoulder girdle may perform minor abduction and adduction actions to maintain proper alignment. So it's not a big a big movement there, but it's a little bit. Shoulder stabilizers are being activated, and some core muscles because she is standing. For the next variation, she's going to do a widened elbow, so she's going to bring them up. Basically, when she comes down, instead of having her elbows pointing straight forward, she's going to have them a little widened. It's the same range of motion, so she's going to get into those. She's going to do about 8. The triceps brachii is responsible for extending the elbow. So by widening it, it'll alter the emphasis within the tricep muscle group, potentially engaging different portions of the triceps, such as the long head more prominently. Deltoids, there might be an increased engagement of the deltoid muscles, especially the lateral head, because it involved more shoulder abduction, activating the lateral deltoid to a greater extent. Upper back muscles, those are activated to require a more stabilization and control of the shoulder blades, and as if there's a tendency to lean backward during the movement, her core muscles will be also activated. Does that make you want to lean back? Yeah, and she's pretty stabilized, so I don't think that was a problem. So for the next one, we'll do the half range of motion variation. So basically, she's going to go into that normal first variation, and instead of going all the way to the back of her head, she might come even to the tops of it. There you go, like level to the back of her head. So the partial range of motion emphasizes elbow extension primarily in the sagittal plane. It'll reduce the involvement of shoulder flexion and extension compared to the full range of motion. Muscles responsible for elbow extension, particularly the lateral and medial heads of the triceps brachii, are primary agonists. Stabilizing muscles, including rectus abdominis, obliques, and rotator cuff muscles, provide support, but are not as actively engaged like the full range of motion. So it'll also target the lateral medial heads of the triceps brachii to a lesser extent. Yeah, and that'll be it for those. So we're still in the resistance training for kettlebells, but we do not have a kettlebell. So we're just going to use this dumbbell and in relation to our kettlebell. So technically she would hold it, I guess like you just hold it by here as if it was like hanging. So she's going to stand on one leg with a slight bend in the knee, hold the dumbbell or kettlebell in one hand. She's going to keep the spine neutral, pull the shoulders back and down. She's going to hinge at the hip, going to trunk flexion with a slight bend in her knee. I know it's hard to balance. While she's doing that, she's going to go down, making sure that kettlebell stays in the middle of her knee. So the muscles engaged while she does about 6 of those. It'll primarily target the posterior chain, which includes the muscles along the back of the body. Hamstrings are heavily engaged. Gluteus maximus are activated in the drive upward phase of the movement. Muscles along the spine, the erector spinae, work isometrically to maintain this neutral spine throughout the movement. Quadriceps, calves, core muscles, and stabilizer muscles. So those are the smaller muscles around the knees and hips to keep her from being too wobbly, to contribute maintaining balance and proper alignment. For the next variation, we're going to place the weight laterally to her leg. So instead of having it in the middle, we're going to have it to the side. She's going to go ahead and flex at the trunk, keeping her shoulders up and back. She's going to come down to the side. So this will increase her core activation, shift her center of gravity, which adds additional activation to stabilizing muscles around the hip and ankle. She's going to have lateral hip muscle engagements. These muscles work to prevent the pelvis from tilting to the side and contribute overall hip stability. So moving the weight over activates a lot of things needed for stability. Now we're going to do a medial weight placement. This will increase the adductor engagement. There's going to be a stability change. It changes the center of mass once again. There's a core activation. Moving it medially further challenges the core muscles, including obliques, to keep deep stabilizers as they work to rotate, to resist rotation and maintain a neutral spine. There's hip shift mechanics to enhance flexibility and mobility over time in this area. Balance and coordination are needed during this movement. Modality number 4. We're going to do rubber band resistance training exercises. For the first one, we're going to do resistance band bicep curls. She's going to stand with her feet shoulder width apart and knees slightly bent on the band. Both of her hands are going to hold each end of one band and palms facing upward, so in a supinated position. As she comes up, her elbows are going to go into elbow flexion. Her muscles are going to be contracting in their biceps. If she does move her wrist flexion, her muscles in this area will also be activated. But we're going to try to keep our wrists stiff. So the biceps brachii, it contracts to flex the elbow joint, bringing the hands forward to the shoulders. Brachialis assists in elbow flexion, contributes to the overall thickness of the upper arm. Brachioradialis, it plays a significant role in stabilizing the elbow joint during the curling motion. Forearm flexors, in the forearm, including flexor digitorum superficialis, flexor digitorum profundus, flexor carpi radialis, are engaged in the grip resistance and band control wrist movement. Deltoids, they'll be stabilizing the shoulders and stabilizing muscles, such as muscles around the shoulder girdle, scapula, rotator cuffs, like the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres major, and subscapularis, to maintain proper alignment. So for the next grip, we're going to do a pronated grip. So she was in a supinated grip, holding the ends of the band, but now she is turning her wrist over, rotating her wrist into a pronated grip. She's going to do the exact same movement. So it's slightly altered biomechanics. This can lead to variations of different muscle recruitments, like the biceps brachii. Its emphasis shifts slightly, but it's still the primary muscle involved. It's more engaged in the short head, leading to slightly different activation pattern. The contribution of the brachialis may increase slightly with a pronated grip. And forearm extensions are responsible for extending the wrist, so it may experience an increased activation of those. How many have you done?
6.
That's good. So for the narrow grip, she's going to put her hands together. Try this. So we're going to do the original variation with a narrow grip with our hands together. So there's some anatomical changes. With that narrow grip, her elbows tend to be closer to the body, pushing against her stomach. This can result in more direct line pull of resistance band, potentially increasing the mechanical advantage. So for the muscle engagement, the biceps brachii may increase activation compared to a wide grip due to altered biomechanics. The contribution for the brachialis will increase. The forearm flexors, they might decrease slightly in a narrow grip because she has greater stability, holding the grip closer to the midline. And also the brachioradialis in the narrow grip bicep curl may be diminished compared to a wide grip. However, it still contributes to elbow flexion and to some extent and seam. So we are still on the fourth modality of resistant training with resistance band. So for the next workout, we're doing lateral banded walks. So she's going to place a resistance band around her legs up to her knees, right below her knees actually, probably running across that patella. So she's going to go ahead and flex her knees. So she's going to bend her knees a little bit, so slight knee flexion. She's going to keep her posture, she's going to have a slight hinge in her hips, and basically make sure her toes stay pointing forward and walking to the side laterally. So as she's moving and doing those, we're going to talk about some muscle activations. There's going to be hip abduction and adduction at key point joint actions, knee flexion and extension. So there's a lot of it's slight knee flexion and extension, but there's also ankle stability that plays a big part, maintaining stability, balance when stepping sideways, so she doesn't like let fall or anything. Muscle engagement, there's glute activation, there's core muscles, quadriceps, calves, quadratus lumborum, hip abductors, the tensor fasciae latae, located in front of the hip. Assist with hip adduction, and then the gluteus minimus and medius are engaged. So for the next variation, she's going to change the placement of the band to around her ankles. So for the foot position, the feet will slightly have an outward rotation to accommodate the resistance of the band. This natural outward rotation helps engage the muscles of the hips and thighs more effectively. So as she goes into that same trunk hinge, hip flexion and knee flexion, she's going to go ahead and get started on those. She's going to go back and forth a few times. For the muscle engagement, it'll increase the glute activation. It'll have greater hip stability challenge. Along the TFL, they'll have to work harder to stabilize the pelvis and prevent it from tilting toward the side or wherever the band is pulling. Engagement of hip rotators. These muscles will work to rotate the thigh outward. Ankle stabilizers. The peroneals and tibialis anterior will be engaged to stabilize the ankle and the controlled movement of the foot against the resistance band. Next variation will be quadricep band placement. So she's going to move the band up to her quads, above the knee. Sorry, this is why we got a mic. I had regular AirPods, so I'm hoping this will give a better quality of what I'm saying. Well, as we get into our next variation, she moved the band up to her quads. She's going to go ahead and do knee flexion. This will cause greater need for stability in her knee because her knees are actually being moved by the band. So she's going to get down. She's going to go into that. Muscle engagement, increased quadricep engagement. During the lateral walk, as they work, they overcome resistance band to maintain proper alignment of the leg. Since the band is up higher, their alignment is shifting more. There's a greater stabilization hip challenge because the band is higher and it's pulling more closer to the hip. the hip will need to be able to stabilize. There's reduced knee stress, similar to the ankle placement actually. This could be beneficial for individuals who experience discomfort or strain in the knees with traditional band placement. And also the hip flexors, such as the iliopsoas, the rectus femoris, they work to lift the leg against the resistance band with the lateral walk. Scene. For the fifth modality, we'll be doing resistance training exercise using weighted plates. So we're doing weighted plate lateral raises. So starting position, stand feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent for stability. She's going to hold the weighted plate in front of her thighs with both hands using a overhand grip, so pronated grip on the weights. She's actually going to bring them to her hips, laterally, and she's going to come up, have her arms straight, and come back down to shoulder abduction and adduction. She's going to do a few of these. Muscle engaged are the deltoids. It's responsible for the abduction of the arm, lifting it away from the body to the side. The supraspinatus is a part of the rotator cuff, initiates shoulder abduction, and assists the deltoid in lifting the arm. The trapezius ensures proper movement mechanics during the exercise. Core muscles are also being stabilized because she is standing and having to need to keep her body stabilized. So she, on the concentric phase, she's focusing on using the lateral deltoid to lift the weight. During the eccentric phase, maintaining tension in the lateral deltoids throughout the movement. She's going to avoid swinging her arms and allowing the weight to drop, and not allowing the weight to drop quickly. For the next variation, we're going to do a Y pose. So basically, she's going to change the range of motion to go internally instead of laterally, forming a Y shape, hence the name. So it's just a slight more medial position of where her arms are going to be coming up and down. Her shoulders are going to be abducting and adducting. So she's going to do a few of those. She's going to come up into a Y shape, so a little wider. There you go, that Y shape. So there's going to be an increase in medial deltoid engagement. It shifts the emphasis to the anterior portion of the deltoid muscle, and additional engagement of the pectoralis major, particularly in the clavicular portion. It assists shoulder flexion and contribute movement of raising the arms in a more medial direction. Change in trapezius activation. Middle fibers of the trapezius may also be recruited to a greater extent. And there will be an altered rotator cuff activation. May experience increased activation to initiate the lift as the body begins to move more in front of the body. Next, for the third variation, we'll be doing a narrow stance, doing the same arm movement as the first variation. So the only thing that's changed from our original position is our feet. So there'll be increased core engagement because her center of gravity, or her ability to keep balance with, like she had with the wider stance, changes because now her feet are narrow. It's like trying to balance a pole on a finger kind of type beat, so she will have to engage more of those core muscles. She's going to bring her weight laterally to her hips and bring them up into shoulder adduction and come back down to shoulder abduction, controlling the weight as it comes up and down. So there's emphasis on shoulder muscles. The lateral deltoid and the supraspinatus will still perform the primary abduction movement, but the distribution and force tension may be slightly different due to the change of stance. There'll be reduced contribution from the lower body. This places greater emphasis on isolating targeted shoulder muscles, particularly the lateral deltoid. And then this could lead to improved shoulder stability and proprioception over time because it is focusing on those upper shoulder muscles more. So we are still on the fifth modality, resistance training using weighted plates. For this next workout, we'll be doing hip thrusts using a weighted plate. She's going to go ahead and bring her feet out into a comfortable position, not too far out. That'll work a different range of muscles, but we'll talk about that later. So during the hip thrust with the weighted plate, several muscles are engaged to perform the movement. She's going to make sure her shoulder blades are sitting on the bench. And as she comes up, make sure she has a flat back, tucking her pelvic in, engaging her core, and making sure she's not arching anything anywhere to prevent any injury. So as she's doing some of those, we're going to talk about the primary muscles during some of the eccentric and concentric phases. During this, her knees are in flexion and extension. Her hips are hinging, and she's engaging her core. But the primary muscles involved are the gluteus maximus, which is the main muscle responsible for hip extension, along with the hamstrings, quadriceps. Additionally, the erector spinae muscles of the lower back help stabilize the spine, and the core muscles assist in maintaining proper posture throughout the movement. As you thrust your hips forward, the glutes contract forcefully, lifting your pelvis off the ground, while the hamstrings and quadriceps assist in extending the hips and knees, respectively. This movement pattern targets the posterior chain muscles, particularly the glutes, making it an effective exercise for strengthening and building muscles of your hips and lower body. So for the next variation, basically she's going to have her feet more outward. So the movement stays the same, but the forward foot placement, there might be a slight different angle of extension compared to the original position for the hip extension. For the knee extension, there's an increase due to the forward foot placement. For the pelvic tilt, is still present to achieve full hip extension, but the angle might be slightly different depending on how far or how close her feet are. So for this case, it's pushed out. So the gluteus maximus is still heavily engaged, slightly less compared to the original position. Quadriceps are more engaged due to the increased demand for knee extension as your feet are positioned further away from you. Hamstrings are still engaged, but at a lesser degree. And the erector spinae provides stabilization of the spine, maintaining proper position. Next, we'll be doing, we'll go back to the first variation of the hip thrust, and she will be doing upper half reps. So she'll be doing half reps, not coming all the way down, meaning she will not be contracting her muscles as deep in the position that she was before. So the gluteus maximus is still engaged, but it primarily involves maintaining tension after full contraction. The hamstrings are engaged to a lesser extent because all they have to do is stay active to assist to help hip extend. The quadriceps are less engaged because the knee extension is not fully utilized, so the knee extension is not extending all the way. So the partial hip extension, there's limit knee extension, and the pelvic tilt, there's still a range of motion limited compared to the full movement. So everything's kind of like more focused and more focused on extension than the contraction. Because she is extending mainly, the contraction is not as prominent for the half reps. Okay. So we are on the sixth modality, and I chose TRX, or suspension training exercises. The gym that had the TRX band is currently closed, so we had to make do with this. Is our own little fake TRX vibe. It is a resistance band on a Smith machine bar. But she's going to hit the range of motion as accurately as she can with what we have. So the starting position, we're going to adjust the TRX band strap mid-length and stand facing away from the anchor point. Since we don't really have an anchor point, we're just going to face this way, because really it's asking for us to face, I think, like forward and through, and the anchor point's behind us. But the anchor point is going to be right there, so technically it'd be a little like that. She's going to step forward to create tension in the strap, so she's going to lean. And when she does that, she's going to hold the handles with the palms facing down. And she's going to be in that push-up like position. And she's going to go ahead and do elbow extension and push herself up and down. Typically, this would be just her body weight, so the muscles engaged would be the pectoralis major, bringing the arms towards the midline of the body and responsible for the horizontal abduction of the shoulder joint. Anterior deltoid assists the pectoralis major in shoulder flexion and contributes in the pressing motion. So the eccentric phase. Triceps brachii are engaged to stabilize elbow joint and assist extending the arms during the pressing phase, so eccentric phase. The serratus anterior maintains proper shoulder mechanics. The rhamboids enhancing shoulder stability, preventing any excessive protraction and core muscles, including rectus abdominis, obliques, transverse abdominis, engaging to stabilize the torso and maintain proper alignment and of the spine throughout the entire exercise. Yes, so typically she would be at a stability disadvantage due to this is supposed to be a TRX band, but because it is on a Smith machine, she has a lot of stability. So the core muscles and the extra stabilizers are not currently engaged, but if she were on a band, it would be different. So the first variation would be the narrow stance. So she had her feet width apart before, and now she's gonna bring them closer together. With the narrow stance, her feet are closer together. A little either aligned with or slightly more narrow than your hips. This affects how the force is transmitted through the kinetic chain during the chest press movement. So typically she'll go through the normal range of motion, elbow flexion and extension, plantar flexion and extension, and stuff. For the muscle engagement, there's going to be increased core engagement, because instead of having her feet width apart, her center of gravity is more stabilized, but now her feet are together. Emphasis on upper body muscles. Primary muscles that are targeted are pectoralis major, anterior deltoids, and triceps. Altered stance may see a change of recruitment pattern of the muscles, reduced lower body contribution, enhanced focus on chest activation. Next, we have our feet are going to go back to the regular shoulder width apart placement, and her hands are going to go into a narrow grip. So they're going to be closer together on the TRX handles. This alters the alignment of the shoulders and arms and changes the biomechanics a little bit. So as she's moving our resistance band closer together, she's going to go ahead and lean forward and go into elbow flexion and extension. So this increases the triceps engagement. The leverage changes, so it places more emphasis on the triceps brachii. There's a decrease in the pectoralis major engagement. The narrow grip reduces horizontal adduction movement, shifting more emphasis on the triceps and an anterior deltoid. The altered shoulder position affects the recruitment pattern of the deltoid muscles, potentially decrease the involvement of the lateral and posterior deltoid fibers. There should be an increase in core engagement and because putting your hands together it'll unstabilize you a little bit more. And there should be a reduced range of motion. So we are still on the sixth modality, the TRX or suspension training exercise. Since we do not have a TRX band, this one's going to be a little interesting. But we're going to do a TRX hamstring curl. So the starting position, adjust the TRX straps to mid-length, lie down on your back facing the anchor point. Place your heels in the foots of the cradle of the TRX. So basically they'll have like two things hanging down separately, but in this case, we're using one resistance band. So I guess just pretend there's two cradles that she could put her foot in. She's going to put her legs fully extended and arms typically in a T position. But for this case, she's going to try to get her back up because we have to engage our core muscles to maintain a neutral spine throughout the exercise. So typically her back will be off the floor and her upper shoulders will stay on the floor. But due to the resistance band not being that strong and possibly breaking, we're going to try to mimic the best way we can. So the muscles engaged. So she's going to do knee flexion. She's going to bring it up and back forward, extension. So while she's doing that, the muscles engaged are the hamstrings, the biceps femoris. It compromises both long head and short head. Both heads are involved in knee flexion and hip extension. The semitendinosus and the semimembranosus, these muscles are also part of the hamstring group and assist in knee flexion and knee extension and hip extension. The gluteus maximus, during the hamstring curl, particularly stabilizing the hip joint and providing additional force during hip extension. Core muscles, the rectus abdominis, transverse abdominis, and some of the quadriceps. The quadriceps will act as stabilizers as well. So during the concentric phase, so her muscles are contracting. She's flexing her knees, pulling towards her glutes while simultaneously lifting hips off the ground. Eccentric phase is slowly extending her knees and hips, lowering the body back to the starting position with control. For the next variation, we're going to do closed feet. So she's going to bring her feet together. So imagine we're putting our feet together while it's in the TRX cradles. So the changes since we're putting our feet together, the force is transmitted through the kinetic chain during the hamstring curl. So the hip and knee alignment also changes. With her feet together, there might be slight changes because her knees are going to want to come outwards more compared to the original feet alignment. But we're going to go through the normal range of motion, trying to keep our knees together and our feet together. So there's going to be increased stability challenge, increase in focus on the hamstrings. This can result a greater emphasis into the hamstrings because they work to control the movement and lift your body towards the TRX anchor point. There's a reduced contribution of the gluteus maximus because the narrow stance may limit the range of motion and reduce the degree of hip extension. And then this could also affect the biomechanics of the, again, hip and knee alignment. Next, for the next variation, we're going to have our hands down by our side. So by doing that, we are no longer providing support to help allow ourselves to push ourselves by our shoulders, which are hitting the ground, but now our hands are down, so they are by our abdomens, and our we don't have our abdomen on the floor, so it's kind of harder to control your upper body. So the muscle engagement, there's an increased core engagement, enhanced lower body activation. The muscles now bear the brunt of the load to flex the knees, to extend the hips, lifting the body towards the TRX anchor point. The gluteus maximus, the muscle contracts concentrically to extend the hips against gravity. The abductor magnus, with your hands off the... Ooh, I think the hands are supposed to be off the ground, actually. So pretend your hands were off the ground the whole time. So with the hands off the ground, there's a greater need for stability and control. And so now there's a challenge for the upper body stability. The scapular stabilizers, while primarily focusing on the lower body, lifting your hands off the ground also challenges the stability of your shoulders and scapulae. Yeah. So now we have reached the end of our workout. I do have a new demo client. This is my friend Helen. So for this part, for the cool down, we're going to start off with a light jog, something not too slow or too fast yet. But basically while she's doing her jog, I'm going to go over like just some benefits of like a cool down and what it can do for you. One, it has like muscle recovery benefits. So during your workout, your muscles go under stress and tension. A proper cool down helps gradually decrease the tension, allowing the muscles to relax. This relaxation phase aids in the removal of metabolic waste products such as lactic acid from your muscles. By facilitating the removal of these byproducts, a cool down reduces a likelihood of muscle soreness and stiffness, and enhancing overall muscle recovery. It helps improve blood circulation, specifically for a light jog. So while cooling down, a light jog could help sustain blood circulation throughout the body. This sustained circulation aids in efficient removal of metabolic waste products, as stated before, from your muscles. And like it breaks up the lactic acid that contributes to like muscle soreness and fatigue. A light jog helps the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the muscle. And having a cool down also helps with the mental transition. So a gentle transition from something maybe really intense to something less exerting helps get to the state of relaxation. A rhythmic motion of jogging can have a calming effect on the mind, allowing you to shift your focus away from the physical exertion of the exercise and towards more a relaxed state. This mental transition helps reduce stress and promote your sense of well-being as you conclude your workout session. So there's like a little bit of similarity between the warm-up and cool-down. They both kind of help you mentally. Like a warm-up helps you mentally prepare for the workout and helps your body get prepared for the actual workout. And as for the cool-down, it slows down your body for the end of the workout to have complete like halt to your workout. So it helps you that mentally. So incorporating stretching exercises also, we'll probably do that after the jog. Incorporating stretching exercises into your cool down routine can help improve flexibility, range of motion in your muscles and joints. When these muscles are worn from exercise, they're more pliable, making it easier to stretch them safely and effectively. Stretching during the cool down phase can help alleviate muscle tightness, and reduce the risk of injury, maintaining optimal joint mobility. So this light jog will also help with your heart health. While the main focus of a cool down is aiding muscle recovery, it also plays a role in promoting heart health, gradually reducing the insensitivity or intensity of exercise during the cool down phase helps prevent abrupt changes in the heart rate and blood pressure, which can strain in the cardiovascular system by allowing the heart rate to gradually return to its resting state. A cool down helps promote cardiovascular efficiency and overall heart health over time, which is really good that it helps your heart also, because one, your heart pumps your blood to your muscles, and so it kind of knocks out the taking care of your heart and taking care of your muscles. So this light jog, it covers a variety of benefits. So not only decreasing the heart rate, it sustains blood circulation, enhancing flexibility, facilitating smooth transition to a relaxed state of mind. You can optimize your recovery process and support your overall fitness goals with a simple jog, especially for even more intense workouts than a resistance training workout. Plyometrics would also probably do well with a cool down jog. Do you have 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. So we gotta keep up with the time.
15 seconds.
Yeah. Can you check your heart rate? 160. So her heart rate's at 160. So typically, this will help lower your heart rate compared to like doing weights or the main segment of your workout. So typically, maybe your heart rate would be higher from doing the weights that we were doing earlier. She wasn't my client before, but yes, you can stop when you hit 5. Yes, so that is the first part of my warm-up. For the next part of the cool down, I do have a forward lunge with an elbow to the instep. So she's going to do a regular lunge. She's going to take her elbow and go inside of her knee and go as low as she can. In this case, she can go to her, go to the floor. So basically during this stretch, the quadriceps, as you step forward into the lunge position, your quadriceps located on the front of your thighs are engaged to extend your knee and to stabilize your lower body. For your glutes and hamstrings, these muscles are located on the back of your thighs and buttocks respectively. Work to stabilize your hips and extend your hip joint as you push back up to the starting position. Oh, can you? For your calves are also activated to stabilize your ankles and to provide support as you lower your body into the lunge position and push back up. Your upper body, bringing the elbow towards the instep, involves the upper body, particularly the muscles of the arms, shoulders, and back. This movement adds an element of rotation and anti-rotation, engaging muscles like deltoids, biceps, triceps, and muscles of the upper back. This improves balance and coordination, enhances core stability, increases flexibility, and other functional movements that improves performance and risk of injury in various physical activities. So with this movement, I feel like you could use it as a warm-up or cool down. For this scenario, we're using it as a cool down. I personally like the forward lunge with the elbow instep. Allows me to get a more stretch done throughout the whole body. And that'll be it. So for the next part of the cool down, we'll be doing knee tucks. A simple movement. She's gonna go ahead and just take a step, grab her knee and knee flexion and lift it up to her chest as high as she can. During the cool down, knee tucks are a gentle and effective exercise to engage multiple muscle groups while promoting flexibility, relaxation. Your abdominals, as you bring your knees towards your chest and tuck in Tuck them in. Your abdominal muscles contract to stabilize your torso and pelvis. For your hip flexors, the action of bringing your knees towards your chest involves the hip flexor muscles, including the iliopsoas and the rectus femoris. These muscles contract to flex the hip joint. Your quadriceps are located in front of your thighs. They engage to help lift and hold your leg up in that tuck position. Your hamstrings. Those are the muscles on the back of your legs as they play a role in stabilizing the movement and controlling to descent of the legs back to the starting position. Also, your lower back, your rector spinae muscles run along the length of the spine and engage to help stabilize the lower back. This helps you improve flexibility and core strengthening. And it helps prevent injury in daily activities and exercise routines. Yeah, good job. Next, we have quad pulls. Quad pulls, also known as standing quad stretches, are commonly performed during cool-down routines to stretch and release tension in the quadricep muscles. The muscular engagement that goes on is the quadriceps, which is a primary muscle targeted. These muscles are responsible for extending the knee joint and flexing the hip joint. Hip flexors, the hip flexors are located in front of the hip and play a role in lifting the thigh towards the torso. Some benefits are increased in flexibility. Your quadriceps and hip flexors, which can become tight and shortened due to prolonged periods of sitting or physical activity. Improving flexibility in these muscles can enhance overall mobility and range of motion in the lower body. There's prevention of muscle imbalances, so stretching your quadriceps and hip flexors regularly can help prevent muscle imbalances between the front and back thighs, as well as between hip flexors and extensors. This can help reduce the risk of injury. It helps enhance your posture. Having tight quadriceps and hip flexors contributes to poor posture by pulling the pelvis into an anterior tilt and causing the lower back to arch extensively. Also, since this is a cool down, it helps with relaxation and stress relief. And also it helps with improved circulation. Quad pulls.